What's up, traders? You're watching Frank's Trades. So today I'm going to be doing a new thing on here called Stock of the Week. I'm going to be posting this weekly, just sort of like a heads up on a certain company that I've sort of looked at and think will be worth watching in the coming week or even beyond. As you know, I'm big into looking at stocks with strong fundamental backgrounds that have experienced a slight hiccup in the short term, whether it be a technical sell-off or release of news or whatever the case, and I look for opportunities to get in. I've been doing this strategy for all my trades so far since I began doing this back in November of last year, and I've grown my portfolio roughly 70% since then. And yes, I dealt with losses, but how I trade is sort of a way that minimizes loss. And for those of you that follow my channel, I'm sure you've developed some sort of idea as to how I trade. But getting back to what I was saying, I'm mostly looking for big name stocks who have outperformed the market, who have solid fundamentals, that are going through some sort of short-term quote unquote drama that they can most likely bounce back from. And a stock that is doing that exact thing here is one that I'm sure you are all aware of, and that is Netflix, ticker symbol NFLX. So I just wanted to take a look at the chart first here in TradingView. You can see this green line here that I drew as some sort of support stemming from the last bottom in late January. I got it circled right there so you could see it. But it respected the first day, you see, on July 18th, and then broke through. In 3 days, it went from 362 a share to 315. If you do the math, that's a 47-point drop. That's roughly 15% change in price. You can see that the RSI is showing well oversold here on the 14-day setting for my relative strength index. One might think this is because of bad earnings, but no, look here. They beat the estimate this Q3. And looking in the past, another happy surprise. And Q1 of 2019, another beat. So what is the reason for this globally known name to drop so sudden and so far in price? One article states that they fell short on incoming subscribers for the last quarter. Instead of 5 million new subscriptions, Netflix only received 2.7, which sort of discouraged investors. On top of that, Netflix lost about 126 subs from the US, a number that hasn't been that big since 2011. And this guy also mentions that people are getting worn out from picking shows to stream, so they just move back to regular TV. Just a side note, but this point was kind of funny to me. I mean, think about that. People are too tired of going through the work of picking shows, and they decide to turn on the TV or whatever channel just to not have to deal with the hassle of making any decisions. I mean, that's just funny to me. But yeah, sorry, I thought that was interesting. But moving on. Since we're talking about the challenges Netflix is facing, let's look at another underlying problem that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the most recent drop in share price, but it is competition. Competition seems to be a big factor in online streaming services. Netflix has about 150 million subs. The runner-up, HBO, is at 145. Amazon Prime racks up about 100 million subs, and Hulu and other networks are much lower and don't even compare. But having said that, I like to add that the amount of subs doesn't necessarily matter. I say that because what matters is not how many subscriptions you have, but how many people actually pay for the content exclusively. And this article shows some great numbers comparing the different companies. According to this, 78% of the subscribers pay for the content and no one else when talking about Netflix. Hulu is only 40% and HBO is 27%. So that means 78% of Netflix subscribers only watch shows on Netflix. So they have a much more loyal, I don't want to say fan base, but more of like an interest whereas Hulu subscribers are more likely to be subscribed to multiple streaming services and eventually get tired of paying for so many monthly bills and possibly grow tired of, the immense library of shows to choose from and turn on the TV and see what channel is picked for them. Netflix is also planning on increasing the price to join their service, which is incentivizing customers to join before they raise it. And Netflix is known for the success of their original series that no other platform uses yet. You see a lot of Netflix originals, and those Netflix specials are actually becoming very popular. Now, getting to my thoughts on Netflix. This last quarter really impacted the price per share, but I think this drop was a bit more of an overreaction. If you put all the drama aside, Netflix is an innovative, efficient, original streaming service company that has already amassed a tremendous following, and a pretty loyal one too. And yes, there's competition, and yes, it did face some issues in the last quarter, but if that is something that makes you want to give up on the company, then I think you are overreacting. Here I rank the stock based on the following factors and whether or not I think this stock is a buy. As for competition, I would say that they are probably one of the strongest when it comes to adapting and coming up with your own things. I think Netflix is probably the best in the industry so far. And I didn't put all the way because I think HBO and Disney's upcoming service can be a reasonable threat to them in the future. And as to relevance, I think Netflix is used so much and people enjoy the content just like Hulu and HBO and whatnot, but people seem to really grasp onto Netflix, and there's so many shows, variety of things to choose from on there, and a lot of things you can do more than other streaming services. But TV shows are very popular, and Netflix has really taken a huge foothold in the industry so far, and it's going to be very hard to make them look like the little guy again. As for growth, I would say they haven't really shown any impressive moves yet. They're already so far ahead of the game that growth isn't really too much of a factor here. We're talking about Netflix. And as for performance, I would say they're more in the lower tier because of lately. The price hasn't really moved too much if you look at the past year. But also this recent drop in price shows how bad the stock has been performing recently. And as for fundamentals, they've had steady revenue growth, but the revenue growth is getting slower than their expenditure growth, which can also lead to some issues. They're talking about raising the price of the service, which we talked about earlier, which I thought and I think is a good incentive to get people to join before the prices actually get raised. But it could also lead to people turning to Disney's new platform coming out soon. But this is still up in the air for as far as direction goes. I could definitely see the stock pulling back up to the upside shortly because of how oversold it is. And it's not like this company has faced problems like this in the past. They've learned to evolve and change things to make them more relative and powerful a powerful company in the market of TV shows. And therefore, that is why I think Netflix is a buy right now. As a swing trader / investor, I see a great opportunity to pick up some shares at this level and possibly hold on to them if the price continues to fall in the short term. It's like what I said about Apple when they touched under 200 and even into the 180s per share. When are you going to see prices like this again? Ever since the beginning of this year, towards the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, you saw a nice climb in price, and it's still positive. But after 6 months, you see we're basically at break even again. So we're talking 6 months here. And as a trader, you're not really thinking 6 months in advance. You're thinking a week to 2 weeks staying in this trade if it goes your way. So when I say when will we see prices like this again, I mean in the short term. Netflix isn't as an extreme case, but they did lose 6 months of traction with regard to its performance and share price. This to me is just a bump in the road, and investors panicked. I do think that buying Netflix at $3.15 or less is definitely a cheap buy. And like Warren Buffett said, I'd rather buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. Just some words of wisdom. But anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'll link the articles I read along with my free channel in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching. And this was my first Stock of the Week episode. Happy to be doing this stuff, and I'll see you next time.